Anyways, hello and welcome back. I am Jane Guilfoyle. I go by Jen. My pen name is Jane Guilfoyle.
And I'm Ansley Ashe.
And I seriously think that we need to call this before the tea. What do we say? Before
Or
the
until
tea's
the tea
gone?
or until the tea runs out.
Until the tea runs out. That was it. Until the tea runs out. And I was looking it up, and I think that as a podcast name, we could totally use that. I think
I
we
mean,
can.
that sounds like fun.
I do too. And we sit and we talk all kinds of things creative wise. So today I thought it was a great time to talk about burnout because both Ansley and myself are incredibly busy. Like incredibly busy. Like my kids, all three of them just decided to join scouts. So that does not add anything onto my schedule at all.
At all, ever, right? And Ansley joined a very special project that ends April the 1st that is quite intensive right now.
Yeah, hopefully it'll post April 1st, it'll be much, 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 much less intensive or gone. One of the two.
Yeah, one of the two, right?
One of the two. Fingers crossed. But I feel like burnout is such a real thing. And like we see it so much on like social media, like it's people talking about like creatives and like burning out and stuff. But like, I don't know. I feel like the dialogue is very like, we just have to get past it.
Yeah, and but I also think that burnout in the writing world goes by a different name. It's called writer's block, right?
Yeah.
And it's been, but that is what writer's block is. It's creative burnout. It's where, like you have kind of the desire to do it, but like you just can't get through it or whatever. So I did a really long spate of about 6 months, where I was feeling incredibly burned out, but I'd had a hip replacement, and that was the time that it took me to recover. So like, you know, when you have something big that comes up in your life, sometimes you're going to feel burnout. Um, and
I
one of
mean,
the
like
things that,
last year when my son was in the hospital for a week, my oldest, and like there was no creative capacity to like handle anything else, right? Like because like my brain was already overloaded with my son's in the hospital, worrying about my son, being there 24/7, caring for my other kids who are not in the hospital, and then all of the rehab afterwards. And actually, hilariously enough, this week I am releasing an article about comfort characters, but like a lot of the things I talked about was like the cognitive load, and that a lot of times with that whole creative thing, like you were talking about, that cognitive load is just so overwhelming that your brain just can't handle anything new. And I think that something people don't think about is that being creative, even if it's a passion for us, creating something takes cognitive space, right?
it does, it absolutely does. I'm going to apologize for sucking on a cough drop because my very special project has given me a cold, but and I feel so awkward in this. It's like, yeah, there's a cough drop in there. Yes, there's definitely a cough drop in there, guys.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd be coughing like crazy because it itches. Yes, the cognitive load of doing anything, like anything creative, like I write mystery stories, and I think mysteries take a bit more to plan out a mystery. First of all, you screw it up the first time because you don't ever get it right, but like it requires so much. I have written romance, I have written epic fantasy, I've dabbled in sci-fi a little bit. Like nothing challenges the brain, the cognitive load writing personally for me, like writing a mystery story. And that's because you either get the pieces of the puzzle in there correctly or you don't, right? And like you have to like, and you just have to think it through. So you have all of the normal stuff that everybody else, like, do you have a character? Is your character believable? Is your setting believable? Is your tone? Have you hit your themes? You do all of that, and then you have the mystery component on top of it. And it is, and so, yes, when I get overwhelmed, and I have been telling everybody for weeks, I have no brain cells until April 2nd.
Yeah. No, no, no. And it's absolutely true. Like that planning process, that's a whole different level, not level. That's a whole different like aspect to the creative load, right? Because like not only do you have your characters that you have to plan out and like your 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 settings and your plot points, is like you have to weave it with these things that are going to come together at the end, if you're going to have your red herrings, if you're going to have whatever other misdirections and stuff, like those are definitely things that like they add to like the cognitive space that it takes up, right? And like, but I think even think like if you're not doing that, like if you're painting or whatever, like I feel like there's a different cognitive load for like if you're going to create something from scratch versus like you and I both also do like fiber arts, right? And like I feel like doing things like crochet and knitting, if you're using a pattern, I do you pattern? Do you use patterns or do you create patterns?
So a little of each, right?
Okay.
So hold on, we're just gonna step out of frame for 5 seconds.
But like if you're you can still hear me. So like if you're really stressed, do you find yourself falling back on the doing something that's a pattern or doing something that's easy versus doing something that
Right.
causes you to create that new like pattern, right? Like if you're doing like a clothing piece that needs to fit properly or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
It
I
is.
find myself like I'll fall back onto like those simple crochet patterns.
So yes. So you will be happy to know that I am totally thinking about crocheting some bookmarks.
Ah, yes.
And I have been searching for patterns and I really literally just can't decide. I can't decide which one I want to do. And that for me is a sign of burnout. Okay, so this is my side knitting project. The piece that we originally came on here and told you I was knitting for my mother's birthday. Still not done with that one yet. That
Hey.
one, that one follows. I know. I guess it's a Christmas present now. Sorry, Mom. I'm really sorry. I do love you. Um, but my side piece is just this is a beanie. And it's a knit one, purl one, and there's tons of like the fiber arts. The thing that I found most fascinating about that is people do this for relaxation. So like if it is simpler, you can do that. It fends off because if you don't tend to your burnout, it's one of the things that leads to depression, right? And
Mhm.
fiber arts is one of the things that counteracts it because if you feel like you got nothing else done in your day, you can go put 3 rows on and your piece is literally bigger and you can literally see that you accomplished something. And that is literally like, and I'm not using that metaphorically, it's literally what they think did it. So, yeah.
Well, and it's like that little dopamine hit, right? Like I think we talk about it in our writing group, especially with like the accountability group, which is really called the editing path. And it's
We're
interesting because
totally
like
talking about editing concepts.
what? I know we never
We're-
talk about editing. I mean, we do sometimes, but very rarely. But if we called it an accountability path, no one would come. Ansley, come on.
of course not.
Um, no, but like I think it's fascinating because like that physical 3 rows can a mean something very different than like maybe if you wrote 3 sentences on a screen, which may not. It's not that physical thing, right? Like it's not that you're not holding it in your hand. But the other thing is like there is also something that's very like the repetitiveness is very soothing for the brain, right? It's kind of why you see even like stimming behaviors for those that have ADHD or autism are a repetitive behavior. And it's because it's like that very like soothing thing to our brain, right? Like because it's like I grab a fidget, right? To like fidget and it's the same motion, but it's soothing to the brain because it's something you don't have to think about, but it gets you something. Like this gets me a noise. Like I don't know if you can hear it.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Um and it's very healthy to like you all I mean you have to kind of attend to your burnout, right? Like because like you said, like if not you fall into a depression. Also, like if you're a creative and you don't attend to your burnout, you may just end up hating the thing that you are trying to make or create, right? Like I mean, as a creative, as somebody who's making something, theoretically we're making it for the joy of it, hopefully first, not necessarily for the commercialism. I know some people obviously do or need to because it is their job, but like, presumably you started doing that thing because you love it. And like, you don't want to get to that point of like hating it and never doing it again either, if that makes
Although my son who's got AP Psych this year in his high school, so he's taking it. He says it's a well-known phenomenon that you love something, love something, love something. You go out to do it, and you get paid for it, and you start loving it less and less and less. It's a well-known. phenomenon, which maybe explains why I don't haven't released as much. I just started like in the last year releasing things. Is like the fear of losing my love of it, but just
I've felt that like lately. Like I haven't really like there's a part of me that wants to not like release books to sell and just go back to just doing fanfic and not having to worry about like all that stuff because it is like it's such a different thing and it makes it not fun in a way because like then you're worrying about sales and you're worrying about this and you're worrying about that and like I want to enjoy what I'm writing, not like worry, am I going to make all the money back? Am I like getting sales? What's my rank on Amazon? Blah blah blah. Or like even like those people who like open like crochet and knit businesses or 3D print like I don't want to get to that point where I hate those things, especially with writing for me, because I went through a 20-year stagnation where I had originally been writing back in college the first time, and then like I took a creative writing course because that was a good idea. No, it wasn't. It was spoilers. It was a bad idea. And I ended up not writing anything for 20 years, literally 20 years.
It took me 10 years to complete my first novel. So like I say 10 years. I do not count the novels that I was trying to write when I was 12. Those don't count. I don't know why inside my head they don't count. Like if I were like writing coaching somebody or writing buddy somebody, I'd be like, they count, they count. I don't
Right?
know. I don't know. They don't.
Miss everything is writing.
Yeah, miss everything is writing. Those don't count. And I think it's just because like I didn't know what I was doing. I'm not like I
Mhm.
didn't know what I was doing. Like I'm an old person, people. I may not look it, but like I'm really old. And so my dad was one of the early adopters of a computer, and there was a program. This is like Microsoft Word. Like how early is this? Microsoft Word wasn't a thing.
Mhm.
Um, they hadn't even started. So I'm in like whatever the notes feature, or I don't even remember what it is, right? And I just sat down and I started writing, and I started writing, and I started writing, and I didn't know. And my dad printed it out for me, and I ran across it. I don't know, like when I moved out of the house the second time, um, so I ran across it, like adult me ran across it, and it's really bad. So I don't count it. Like I don't count it because like I was delusional. You could tell I was 12 when I wrote it. It didn't really have a story, and I just feel like that wasn't really an attempt to tell a story. It was more of an attempt to just like I had things that I was thinking about, and I thought knew what a story was, and I was just like messing around. So
Mhm.
I count that as an attempt to write a novel, right? And then, so I was like 12, I was like 10 or 12 when I started that. I didn't really start to write a novel, start to think about structures, think about what a story was until I was 18. And it took me 10 years to finish my first novel. That doesn't mean like I started a novel at 18 and then when I was 28, I finished it. What I mean is, I started a novel and then I didn't know what the heck I was doing and I couldn't get the story complete. And then I would lose steam in that, and then I would try something else, and I would lose steam in that, and I would try something else, and it took 10 years before I even got any kind of a story. And all this time I'm reading and I'm studying about structure, about all this stuff.
Mhm.
I went to college. I did not take a creative writing course. Everybody was shocked that I wasn't an English lit major. Um, I was a business major in college. I took business administration and law. So what it means is I know how to read every contract that comes my way. Thanks, college. And I know how to set up a business. So while you're talking about like, oh, what is my rank and you feel pressure on that, I feel data nerdy about it. Um, because I'm like, ooh, where am I? But I'm just in a different space. Like maybe if I were, we'll use the words a bit more successful in sales, I might feel some pressure there. I don't know. Um, I don't know. It just depends on my personality. But it did take 10 years, right? And some
Yeah.
of that definitely looking back now, all those novels that got dropped along the way, the sci-fi one, the romance ones, the this ones, that ones, the not ironically, unironically, the first one that I finished was a mystery. It was the first mystery I ever decided to write. And I just had a firmer concept of the characters inside my head
Mhm.
and the beginning, middle, and end of that story. And I was just able to do it. And what I did was my children were really little. My oldest two were really little. My son wasn't born yet. And I sat down every night. I put the kids to bed and I sat down for an hour or two and I wrote. And in 90 days, I had a first draft of a novel.
Yeah. Now, did you? during your novel writing process, maybe not during those 90 days, because I've gone through times where like I wrote like my Christmas romance in like less than that, probably like 40 days or 30 days or something. It was wild how fast that first draft got out of me after Nano. Um, but how did you deal with burnout when you were, if you've experienced it during like your novel writing process?
So, right. So, Jen and I both used to be municipal liaisons for NaNoWriMo. And I would say before I was in ML, I didn't experience burnout, but I feel like it's stalled, like where you're stalled. Um, so I did have a lot of those. I would attend, and when I was in ML, right, I am worried about my other writers, right? Like I am worried about taking care of them and less about my own fiction. So like, the way I worked it, I'm fortunate to be a stay-at-home mom, right? And my kids are older than your kids.
Yeah.
So I didn't have as many demands on me in November as maybe you do, because like there were fewer school things to attend because my kids were in high school. It's kids to be in between sports seasons, so November was like a pretty good month for that. So there was less stuff there. So then I was working as an ML like 40 hours a week. I mean, I know they said you weren't supposed to, but like I would, because like I had things to say to my writers, and I had events to set up, and I had places to go, and I had to double check on things. And so like getting to my own writing was really difficult, and I did experience some burnout creatively, because like I was putting in, if I was writing to my writers, that's the same creative energy that I would use to put into my story, and I didn't have it to put in my story. And I would say that I definitely dropped more stories, and not dropped, just like it just took longer to finish them, right?
Mhm.
On the other hand, when I was just a Nano participant, I had one story like the fastest, and then I definitely felt burnout afterwards, but I wrote it, I think, in 13 days. Well, it took like 16 days to complete it because I had to take 3 days off because I was writing so fast and so hard. My hands were swollen, and like I had to take days off just to rest my hands.
Mhm.
And then I would go back at it, and the story just burned through me. At the end of this, I was finished so early, they hadn't even opened up the, hey, you can validate this yet, right? And so, like, I'm like, well, now what do I do? But at the end of that, creatively, I was burned out. I had nothing to give, anything. I couldn't decorate my house for Christmas. I had no brain cells left to plan Thanksgiving dinner, like none of that stuff. It all, like, I went to sleep. I had to start exercising. That's one of the things that I do for burnout is I if I feel like I'm burned out, I have to be very attentive to have a mild exercise routine. A heavy exercise routine pushes the burnout harder, but like a mild one, like just to get that, just to
Mhm.
make sure I got blood pumping to that brain and making sure like I'm de-stressing. I try to walk outside in nature, which is
Mhm.
one of those things they say is scientifically proven.
Mean go touch grass? Go touch grass. My husband, by the way, had never heard that term, go touch grass. And hilariously, because I had posted on Substack a couple days ago, like all the Crunchyroll has like the best like subheaders for like animes. And for the highly bingeable ones, there is a subheader that is just go touch grass because people
Yeah,
are binging it so hard that they need to go outside and touch the grass.
we do. I do. And I'm fortunate that I live like 2 miles from I'd say 2 miles, but like as the crow flies, it's like probably 3/4 of a mile to the local forest preserve.
Yeah.
And 2 miles because you got to go around it by road
Yeah.
and stuff. But so it takes like 3 minutes to get there. Hop in the car, go walk it, and yeah. And I,
Yeah.
I try to do that. I try to do that every single day if I feel like I'm feeling burnout.
And I definitely like what you're saying is true too because like when I had my kids younger because when I started writing was it's 2025 like 2019 so like 6 years ago was when I really started getting back into writing. I mean, my oldest is 10 going on 11, so back then he was 4. Like there was like a big difference between 6 years ago when my kids were like 4, 3 and 2, and I could throw on Paw Patrol for a half an hour and knock out a half an hour of writing, right? As opposed to now, I can't get through 5 minutes of a TV episode without them fighting on the couch, anyways. Um,
Do not miss
it's.
these days.
I know, I know, I know, I know, but I'm also saying like it's interesting how like life changes, and like those life changes, they're never going to stop. Like you're always going to have life changes, and you do have to embrace that. Which I think we've said before as MLs to our nano participants. Um, but you're right. Like the more that I take on load wise, where I've been like a leader in things, I've been an editor on our anthology, and doing the nano or now novel quest, you know, municipal liaison or novel quest guide. Like those things again take up more cognitive load, and like it's no wonder looking on the last like year why why I didn't finish a novel. The only thing I finished I think was like a fanfic, because I gave up on writing a novel at one point and was just like, I need something for me. And that was like one of those whole, me and Gwen were talking, and she was all like, yeah, well, like it's too bad there aren't more fanfics for this. And like within a day, I'm like, nope, okay, now we're writing a fanfic. And then all of a sudden I had like a 45,000 word fanfic. Um, and
But
yeah,
that's one
like,
thing you can do for burnout too, right? Is I tell a lot of writers and a lot of my friends that are writers this is like strike where the iron is hot. If that's where your creative energy is, like feed that
mhm,
energy because you will have more energy for the things that are more difficult if you feed that creative energy, right? Like if you stay
yeah.
stuck in something that you're just not vibing with, to use my teenage kids term, not vibing with. Um,
I mean, I feel like vibes are like a thing that we said too, so it's okay. It's okay.
I am an ex. I am like solidly an exer. It was not something we said.
Oh,
We
sorry. I'm a zillennial. I'm on that Gen X millennial. I
Yeah,
don't
no,
look
I'm
it. I don't look it.
totally.
I was even told last night I got a baby face. No, but you're like I say the same thing too, but like, the like classic advice is that you don't follow the plot bunnies. But what if the plot bunny is what you have passion for? Then yes, you should follow the plot bunny. I fully agree with that, and I think it's hard. Well, it's one of those things too, right? Like advice is going to be different for each person, and is like whatever people say is like what you should do is really like what they feel like is the best thing. But like if your creative energy is being put into something that you love and not necessarily to sell it, and you're not on like a contract to get so many books out, then like it is that thing. Like yes, you can follow the plot bunny and go after it, and when you put like some people thrive on deadlines, right? Like we find that out in the anthology. Certain people never like finish a writing project unless they're in the anthology and they have that strict deadline. But that's still like a lot of work.
It is a
Like,
lot of work, and it's a lot of work to throw in a short amount of time.
mhm,
Depending on how you deal with on how well you deal with deadline. And also, there's nothing like an external deadline. Like I am more likely. So I set internal deadlines for myself, right?
mhm,
Which like every other writer in the world, of course those slip. Like,
yeah.
of course, I don't get it out there, right? But if I put it out there that like I'm going to do critique group, or if I'm going to send it to critique group, or I'm writing and editing in the anthology this year, or I'm sending it to the anthology or whatever, those definitely take priority. Or like I even hire an editor to clean, to do like my final copy edit. I pay a very lovely lady to do this. I'm like, don't change the prose, don't whatever, just copy edit, please. But if I don't have that, then I don't get it finished, right? And I want my work finished well ahead of time, especially because I'm self-publishing. So like I do kind of have to hire somebody to do that because if I don't have that external pressure, it's not the same, right? Like if I send it, I'm not saying you should, right?
No,
But
yeah.
for example, if you agreed to like do the copy edit for me, I would totally stand you up on this. Instead of like it's the having that money go out the window, like
Yeah. Well, and as a creative, there's the things that you can do, and then there's the things that you can't do because you have a limitation, money being a limitation. I mean, honestly, life being a limitation. There are certain people like, yeah, they want to go write a novel and they want to be an author, but if you can't do it and you have a full-time job that's 40 to 60 hours a week, the your cognitive load is already taken up. Like, how many times do we see people being like, "Well, just exercise more." Well, that's great advice if I have the time, but I currently have 3 kids. They're in scouts, they're in ballet, they've got school functions. I'm a PTA mom. I'm this, I'm that. And if I weren't a stay-at-home mom already, which again is a privilege, and I am putting it out there, like, I know it is a privilege. I know I am privileged just like you to be a stay-at-home mom. um, there's so many things I wouldn't be able to do. I wouldn't be writing. I wouldn't have most of the creative outlets that I currently have because I just wouldn't have the time, right? And like time is a constraint, and burnout takes up more of that constraint, right? Like the burnout then like takes away time for trying to get to certain things done. But like you've got to manage it, right? But if you're working 40 to 50 hours a week on something else, like it's harder to manage, and it's harder to even like manage that burnout. And that's why like so many people, right? Like you come home from work, you sit down and you don't have the cognitive load to sit down and write. You want to maybe just watch TV. And like part of the reason I wrote the article is because like back in the pandemic, we had a lot of people experiencing burnout because we had this global thing going on, and we talked about that cognitive load because that's a cognitive load in and of itself. And so people were finding that they were going back on like Netflix or whatever and like rewatching their favorite shows like that they've watched for the bazillionth time. And part of it is that you have that comfort in it. You know what's going to happen. You know those characters. You're not investing new time and energy into learning new characters, um, wondering what's going to happen in the plot. Half the time now, I even look up spoilers for things because I'm just like, I don't have the cognitive load to like go through the
There's just
journey. Like, just tell me if somebody's going to die. Like, just tell me now because I don't want to sit here wondering.
I think that's the thing I like most about so, like, and there's, like, I think there's, like, a specific moment in the show where, like, you know what the major spoilers are gonna be, right? Like, big XYZ character dies off in season la la la, right? So you know that, but you forgot, like, that day in and that day out, you forgot how many seasons character A was in there, and you forgot that they came back in season, 12, right? They were in for seasons 1 and 2, and then boom, they were back in for season 12, and you're like, yeah, and you forgot that, or they're only in for a show, you forgot what season that's in. So you have all of that joy, all of the joy of the rediscovery of the like tiny details that you forgot because like you cannot keep like 100 episodes of anything inside your head
You
perfectly.
can't, but like I tend towards like let's say the procedural shows because they tend to have that very formulaic like setup. Things tend to be very happily ever after. Sometimes there's that shakeup of like a character dying or whatever, primarily because I love crime procedurals. You know, I know I
Yeah,
know. Like when I'm in my stressed out phase, I watch Bones, for example. I
I
love
love it.
Bones. It's hilarious. But I will also go on specifically IMDb and be like, okay, I hate Daisy. I will not watch an episode with Daisy. So I will make sure before I put an episode on, it doesn't have Daisy, or it's not the episode where Sweets dies, or
You
it's not
don't
the
want her
episode.
you don't want to hear her talking about how she loves her Lancelot? Oh my
I
god.
love Lancelot more. So you know what? Which, by the way, I met John Francis Daly. um,
Um,
but also, I mean, like I mean, as a person, like I loved him too. At like people probably don't know this, like he left Bones to become a writer, right? And like so like one of the big things that when he created his own production company was the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves movie he wrote.
I know.
I love
It's
him
fun.
more than her. Like I know all these things. No, I'm kidding. But like like so like that cognitive load is like it's something that like we talked about like 5 years ago because of the pandemic, but is something that is still there day to day. And like I feel like we talk about it in our writing group, and I feel like we talk little bits about it on like social media, but like letting everyone know, no matter what type of creative you are, that it's okay. Like things are going to be constantly changing in your life, right? Like, and that there are times when you can do it. Like, yeah, you can write that 90,000 word story novel and get it edited and published. And then a year later, you're not going to be able to work on the sequel because your job changed, or you got married, or you're planning trips, or you're doing this, you're doing that, like there's, and
Or you
that's
got sick,
okay.
or you get sick.
Or you
You
get
get
sick.
sick. Yeah, or you have like, yeah, life changes.
But it's also not forever, hopefully, not forever changes, right? Like things will theoretically change back. Like how 5, 6 years ago, yeah, I got several stories out and published, and now I literally don't have like the time. Like
But
and
your kids will only be this age for a short amount of time, right?
exactly. And
And then
that's why I
you'll
embraced
come
it,
to
right? Like all 3 of them joined scouts, and like that's a huge time suck. Like the number of freaking activities that we are now doing is wild. But I also want them to do this. I want to be there for them. Yesterday I was out of the house from like 4:30 until 9 because of activities, and I have just recently come to terms with the fact that it's okay. I keep having to change my plan. Earlier this year, my plan was to get the second dark spell out because I've been sitting on that. Dark spell was my literally like my first thing that I got out. I have had the sequel sitting on my hard drive for years. It currently needs a rewrite. So it's not something I can just shove to an editor. Um, but it's not the thing I'm passionate about right now. I don't want to, like, every time I open up, I'm like, "Yeah," and then I notice I'm getting distracted and I'm going on something else. I'm going on Facebook, I'm going on YouTube, I'm looking at the stock market, like, I'm doing all the things to not do that. But when I was writing shutdown syntax over the weekend, it was coming like
yeah,
that. So like
I love
there's a huge difference, and so yeah, you're right, following that passion. Of course, I'm the plot bunny expert, and I follow the plot bunnies, like, you know
so I have a hack, that
you
I
have a
do.
hack. I want to hear your hack.
So
Also, by the way, we have like the most number of people on our live right now.
I
We've
know,
never
like,
had 4 people, so shout out to you, four
never had
people
me before. Like, so, like, yay, we're growing, right? In the middle of the week too. Like, I know this, like, we do this at such a random time in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, or whatever.
because we're
Okay,
both stay-at-home moms. We're
because
both
we're both,
stay-at-home moms. I'm
well,
doing this around my I'm gonna go get groceries after this.
I know, right? It's like, oh, we can definitely squeeze this in between breakfast and lunch. This is the thing I tell people. Like, the thing that most people don't understand about being a stay-at-home mom, right? It's like when your workday ends, my workday begins,
Yeah.
right? And like the middle of the day, I have time. Like, okay, did I make my beds? No, I didn't. I never make
No,
beds.
I don't either.
Um,
It's okay.
did I vacuum? Probably not. But
I
like,
picked
but
up
you
the
have your
Legos before this.
I mean, yay, right? I did some laundry this morning. Like, I totally got laundry, down the stairs and into the washing machine. Now it needs to go into the dryer.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, so like, but you have like your normal household chores, which everybody kind of does, right? But like the minute the kids get out of school, like, because you have school age kids, right? The
Yep.
minute the kids get out of school, then, boom, you're there. Like you're on, right? And they've got to go if they're into sports. My kids were always into sports, right? You've got a sports practice. And I had 3 kids, right? So I had sports practice A, sports practice B, and sports practice C. The kids all had to go there. I had to swap with the different moms in the mom groups to do, right? Everybody else has a normal job. So like if you were in PTA or PTO or whatever, then those meetings are after school. If you're in boosters, those are after school. If your kid is in the play, that stuff is after school, right? Then they have all their projects that they have to do, and I don't understand why I read the stupid syllabus, but I still didn't put it on my calendar to get their stuff a week before their project is due. So like 2 days before their project is due, we're like making an emergency run to the crafting store to get
Yeah,
stuff,
that's
to
the
do things.
ADHD, so it's fine because you and I are both like
But
ADHD.
I mean, but that's what life is like, and I
Yeah.
still have to cook dinner, and I still have to, get everything together, and like you said, you were out from 4 until 9 last night. I mean, that sounds normal, right?
Yep.
And I have all these meals that I call squish meals because it used to be that my kids would come home from school, do a thing, and then I'd have to turn around and go back out and do whatever, right?
Yeah.
And we were squished for time between all the after school activities and all the evening activities, and
So is this your
And like,
hack? Are you getting to your hack? I wanna know your hack
yeah,
because you know
I
what?
have
My tea
2
is
too.
out, so
All right, so we'll have to do. So, so the hack is, so 2 hacks, right? One for squishy nights is your crock pot is your friend, and the other is if you have a plot buddy that comes up, note cards. And I
see,
take
I am note cards on the phone type person. Like I will because my phone is always with me. I will do the notes. Like my notes app has like notes and notes and notes for stories, but like very similar. Yeah, like note cards are great.
right. So then I take a new plot, like so if I'm writing something and I have a new plot buddy come out, I write down whatever that is. I put it down, and then this goes into it's a I say a jar, but it's actually a vase. I go into a vase, and then when it comes out, when I'm out for doing that, that way I both assuage my plot buddy, and I can in everything that fills up the note cards. And if it takes more than one note card, it goes into a notebook somewhere. But the note card is for in there, and then the notebook gets set to the side. So I sometimes develop things. I think the thing that helped me the most, the hack that helped me the most is if I want to be a writer, is thinking about it like a production studio. So you're gonna have things that are in pre-production, things that are in production, and things that are in post-production.
Mhm.
Um, and you've got it sounds like dark spells. Is that the one? I
I
don't
have
know.
so many in like production. I have so many whips. Like it is not even funny. Like I probably have like 7 or 8 files that are whips, but then like there's others up here. Like no, it's probably more. It's probably like 10. Um,
I do try to touch them, and I give myself like a week to see like I sit down every day and like I read it and I give myself a week to see if I can get back into it.
mhm.
And if I can, I can, and if I can't, I just push it off and like we do it again. But I only try to stay in editing no more than 60 days in anything. Like if it needs a
Yeah,
rewrite or whatever.
I think that there's like I think that because we should wrap up. I think that there's a lot to learn about yourself when you're hitting burnout. Like what works for you because obviously every person works differently, right? Like I have had burnout where I just needed to stop writing for a while. Like for example, the medical issues with my family, like I had to just stop writing. Like I had to just be I had to understand that it was okay that as a creative, I was still a creative if I was not currently creating because I needed to take care of my family. Um, I've had to learn that it's okay to switch projects. For a while, up until I want to say like October of last year, I had like a daily streak going on of writing. Like I was literally writing every day. And I wasn't burning out per se on the writing, but I would burn out on a project and then I would switch to another project. So at the time, for almost like 5 years when I was writing every day, maybe I would get like 2 to 3 good weeks like hyper focusing on a project and then I would swap projects, right? Like and that worked for me. Right now that does not work for me and I have to relearn what's going to work. And right now
And that's
you're
okay.
and that's okay, right? Like, and that's okay. And it's coming to terms with that being okay and that your homeostasis is always going to change, right? Like your what works for you is going to change and it's being okay with that and then learning the new way that it's going to be okay. Um and I think it happens with any creative. Like it'll happen if you're a painter. It'll happen if you're a fiber arts person and you're into crochet. Like I don't know how some of these like crochet like artists that have like a store like do it because like for me like but I also get really bored really easily like with the same pattern same thing day in and day out. Um but it works for them, right? So like I think like it's not a hack. It's definitely not a hack. It's learning what works for you, but then realizing things will change, right? Like yeah, my kids will get older. They will get into high school and they may or may not have like certain things that they want to do. Eventually my oldest being in scouts, like he will go to things by himself and he won't have me there. And so things are going to constantly be changing. I already know that come the fall, things change again because my oldest goes to middle school. And the middle school day starts and ends earlier, which means my time in the middle of the day gets shorter because I still have the kids in elementary school. Then my oldest goes to middle school first, so he's like there at 7:45, and then I have drop off at 8:25, and then I have pickup at like the middle school at like I think they get out at like 2:45, so I've got to be there at like 2:15 because the parent right, like things are going to constantly change. And that's okay. And it's letting go, like learning to let go of those expectations is like it's super hard. And as a creative, it can be really hard to get out of that rut, not rut. It can be really hard to get out of that scheduling that you had, but I still make time.
Routine.
I think my biggest hack, it's not a hack, but like the biggest thing from the journey that I learned was that scheduling the time, right? Like I schedule this time to work. I scheduled this time to be with you on the podcast here.
Thank you.
Like I scheduled to be at Shut Your Trap on Thursday nights. And so while I may not be writing every day like I used to, I'm writing the things that I want to write. I'm evolving. Things are evolving. And I do some of the same things you do to get through burnout. Okay, one last thing and then we're done. What is that like? Do you have any other tips? Otherwise, we will call it because we've been on for a while.
For forever, right. And you're out of tea and I'm
I'm out
almost
of
done.
tea. I'm out of tea.
Almost done. The only other thing that I read was sometimes you just need a complete 2 week vacation. So I think like set your timer at 2 weeks and just walk away for 2 weeks and set that reminder on your calendar. I'm ADHD, so like sometimes when I'm out of the routine, I find it very hard when I'm out of a routine to get back onto the routine. So I definitely have to set like daily reminders for 2 or 3 weeks afterwards. But that 2 weeks is kind of maybe really important because and try not to think about it at all. Like give yourself like just tell yourself I'm on vacation. You
Yeah,
know,
I'm on vacation. Do something to refill your well. We've talked about that in the journey. So like what brings you joy? Make sure you're doing something that brings you joy when you are in burnout too. Like if it's watching your comfort show, if it's going out for a walk, if it is getting extra yoga or Pilates or weight training, whatever exercise you like, like making sure you refill your well in whatever way. Do other art. Maybe if you're constantly writing, put it away, like you said, for 2 weeks, do some drawing, do some watercolor, like change
do
it
some-
up to refill your well. Have a good cup of tea.
all right. Yeah. Have a great cup of tea. With that, my tea is done. My tea is
My
done.
tea is done.
Your
There's
tea is
foam. It's
done.
just foam. There's nothing else. There's just foam.
And yes, this is a Starbucks cup. It's one of my kids' Starbucks cups, but I'm right-handed
Mine's,
and
I like to think this is only Donnie. It's not any of the other turtles. It's just Donnie.
I'm down with
Okay, so we have kind of settled on a schedule of you and me every 2 weeks,
that on Tuesday.
or every other week, whatever.
The other
Um,
way.
so we together will be back in like 2 weeks.
And then hopefully I will get to catch a live stream with you.
Yeah, I don't know what
With
I'll do
you.
next week. I may take next week off because next week is my kid's spring break.
My son is on spring break this week, but I mean he's older and so he's not even out of bed yet. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, good
my
luck. Spring
my
break, fun
kids,
time.
yeah, and my husband's off all next week, so we will probably be doing lots of things with the kids. We
This
have
is an
several scouting events.
this is an excellent time to not worry about your writing. To be like, I am filled in all of these other places, and my writing can just rest.
Although I will probably post pictures of my new 3D printer projects because my new 3D printer is beautiful and I love it.
Yeah. All right.
I'm a nerd.
Well, I guess we will see you next time. Bye.
Yeah, bye.